surgery the other day, didn't you?
Twice.
Is he really?
Yeah. They put a wire down in my brain. So put a little pacemaker here. Put, garage door open. There's causing me to jump.
You're like Frankenstein now, right?
Yeah, I feel like it. But they program tomorrow. So I'm excited that maybe I'll.
Good.
My right side will recover.
How they got to before the rest of it?
Oh my gosh, just the first.
Go back to the lead. 5 minutes early. 5 minutes early.
How are y'all? I've been told I can't.
Do we get to be extras in the movie? Y'all can't wait. That's exciting, isn't it? How are you feeling?
One more time.
What is the boost coming? What's the
More of a time.
They're going to make them pretty big because it was the front of the gym's fashion and attracted. Did you know that? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what they wanted because it's like Brooklyn back in the 50s, the look of the store. So it's a good thing.
When I go like this, I can feel the wire.
How it business like redo that storefront just yet. For me. See?
But now I have a
Value in they're in the closet there. Just stare at here.
No, they didn't go.
I sent you his cell phone. We had the leg this year because for the first time we weren't in coats. Remember it's always been so early. My mother-in-law, she just, well, that's what I'm starting to wonder. She just did.
We were about to be underwater.
When Teresa sent out 2 weeks ago to take the pictures to get her phone was over Verizon in the States, and I never got that message.
Some people, some people smile and she told us.
Morning.
How are y'all?
Here for our counseling session. We start with label traffic.
I take blank checks. Consultations.
Political depression. So political depression in terms of people that are addicted to too much Fox or too much CNN or too much whatever.
I don't, but you know that's a real thing.
You should just go. I know it is.
Sensory overload.
How to get put down the cell phone. The other day I left the cell phone. I was already halfway up the highway, going, do I go back and get it? Or do I just keep going and just play it by chance?
Or how about those people when they're holding it? Where's my cell phone? I can't find it.
So I turned around and went back and got it.
What about Bob?
I don't know any phone numbers if I had an emergency to call.
Wait till you get your first client, but what about Bob, my person?
That could be me. I could be your what about Bob.
They're like, what's your phone number? I'm like, let me give you this thing.
We're not seeing you till vacation together. I know that's really a problem.
Right.
Good morning. We knew you were coming.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We get started with our workshop for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019.
Madam Chair, could we amend the agenda to add discussion regarding the use of vinyl siding?
Vinyl siding.
Vinyl siding,
Okay.
to maybe clarify some issues that may come up. You can either put that probably at the end or after art space, or you want our guests to go first and then we can discuss it after or something? Wherever you want to
Let's
put
put
it.
it on the end.
Okay.
Okay. But the first item on the agenda is to discuss tenant complaints, policies, and procedures. Griffin Housing Authority, Executive Director Bob Dole will address.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad to be here.
Glad to see you.
Yeah, no kidding. We'd like to start off with, we started our process with the Housing Improvement Committee that we meet once a month as part of our...
Can you state who's with you first?
Oh, I thought you knew everybody, but
I just want you to point out one guy.
Kendall Woodard,
No,
Troy Hewlin, and Kim Walker, and Kristen Miller's just kind of clinging to the edge.
Troy is the one that scares me, that's all.
Yeah. Anyway, as we came here today, we wanted to kind of explain, one, that we've moved to our new location on 9th Street. And we are beginning the transition to diversifying what we do. Instead of just managing public housing, we've gone through our third development. We're about to do our final 2 phases, which is Fairmont and Nine Oaks. It's been delayed because the State Historic Preservation is fighting us to transform the way the outside looks, which we tried to do through 7 months of arguing, and we basically lost that battle, but we're moving forward with the redevelopment. As I said, we've broken into 3 pieces. One is our Griffin Housing Authority, then Griffin Housing Redevelopment, Griffin Housing Management, and Griffin Housing Services. Tenant complaint is going to fall under the Griffin Housing Services because we recognize, partially through our interaction with the committee and with the housing improvement, that the city and the county gets overwhelmed with tenant complaints that could be, one, the result of a manager filing eviction, and there's justifiable reasons why they have to go, but the other might be that they're just victim of retaliation due to complaining about something that existed. A big problem in Griffin about tenant complaints is there's inconsistency with the move-in inspection, because a lot of the conditions they accept when they move in, they should have already discovered. And so that's what we're doing. So, if you go to the next one. That's Murphy's Law. Okay. I guess so. The Griffin Housing Services, we'll move on from there. Oh. And as you remember when I presented to the board before, there are certain statute powers that a housing authority operates under. 3 of them is what we're going to discuss today. 1, to act as agent for the city for the management clearance of city-owned property or, transition, such as demolition and stuff like that. So we work very closely with the city on that. The other piece is that we have broad inspection authority that allows us to go out into the community and determine whether there are health, safety, and welfare issues. We are mandated reporters, so if we see children at risk, we are required by law to report it. So, and the other one is conduct examinations, investigations, and hearings into the conditions that exist. With those as the backdrop and the umbrella in which we operate, go ahead. These are some of the conditions we end up discovering when we go out and look. These are actually occupied units. So when you see these, you see exposed wirings. The bottom corner is the kitchen, and there is no stove. The refrigerator's in the bedroom. Exposed electrical wires. I think this particular house was sold to an outside investor from Texas who bought it sight unseen and came here and moved, assuming he'd have a house to move into. So, those are the kind of challenges that we've had. Go on. Some more of the problems we have here. To me, this should have been discovered at move-in. But people are so desperate for a price point rental that they'll accept conditions based on either a promise that the landlord would come back later and fix it, or that you got to take it or leave it. Go to the next. Just more of the same that we discovered. Those are exposed electrical wires. Go on. A bathtub full of fecal material. She takes a shower with a bucket. So, right now, tenant complaints, they come to the city planning office, file a complaint. And so what we're trying to do is we're going to want to relieve the pressure off the city planning and say we have one spot in town to file a tenant complaint. Now, the city of Griffin, the county would have to refer those people, and we'll give them forms to do so. Go ahead. This is the form, intake form. We'll have these in planning and development for the city and for the county. What this form does is it allows us to document to begin the conversation with the landlord. So this isn't just we're taking the tenant's word. Part of the process is we will sit down with the landlord and try and negotiate out what this situation is. The last two, I think the landlord said she can go ahead and leave and we'll give her a deposit back, all that. The landlord knew he was kind of caught. So, but one of the things that we wanted to make sure with this form is that there's closure of it. So the back side of the form, we meet with the landlord and tenant, and we determine whether, go on. We determine, I'm sorry, the sequence, I got lost. We determine whether the landlord is at fault for a reason or the tenant is at fault for a reason. Many times tenants will file a complaint after they've been writ for eviction. So that's a challenge we have, and what we'll try to do is communicate and educate the community that you have to go through a process if you have a maintenance issue or maintenance failure. Okay. Recently, House Bill 346 just passed. We've been given notice as a housing authority. When the governor signs this bill, it means there will be zero retaliation. That's going to be a hard one to prove. So what's going to happen is if it's an obvious retaliation, I can tell you the judges are going to kick it out. But if it's a questionable retaliation, I don't see how they're going to make a determination. It'll just tie up the courts with claims of retaliation when it won't be. But we're just keeping our fingers crossed that this is a manageable bill that's going to be coming through. It's going to transform the way blighted landlords manage their properties and things. We've already started gathering informational forms for our office. It'll be a one-stop housing shop. These are just, we'll have tenant landlord law, we'll have what to do if this, what to do if that. We have bed bugs, mold. We have a big bed bug problem in Griffin, which I don't know if you're aware of. But when you have an infestation, it is near impossible to stop unless you bake the house. I think the temperature is like 140 degrees. But we got a serious bed bug problem. Troy went to inspect one and couldn't go in because the guy said he was infested with bed bugs. He even had growling on him. So just know that that's another challenge we're going to try and take care of. So these are all the different things we'll be doing: complaints, tenant rights, landlord rights, poor management, escrow rent. All we're trying to do is to say this day and this day forward, certain things that have been permitted in the past are not going to be permitted. And you have to give us the authority to do that because under our state charter, we have to work in conjunction with the city and the county. Okay? we determine whether the complaint is resolved, and then we go on to an inspection of the unit. We have a licensed home inspector, mold, USIG, HUD inspector, and Class 1 code enforcement. So we're taking that in addition to your code enforcement. We're not replacing your code enforcement. All we're doing is taking care of those three words: health, safety, and welfare. The code enforcement pretty much focuses on the physical. We focus on the softer things.
And you're funding that through your regular budget?
Yeah. Then we make a report and recommendation. We have a complete report with the breakdown of the circumstances, with that form that the tenant filled out, and with the disposition of that complaint on the back of that form. We then put those together and send them over to the city or the county. The reason we send them to the city or county, so they can make a determination whether they tag the meter to where when that person moves out, they can't reoccupy. I don't see us getting into a lot of removal of people right now, but I think this is when the procedure is in place, the landlords will know that there's no place for cover. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on y'all. But what we're trying to do is make your job easier. Okay.
Let me say this before you go any further. It's not going to put any pressure on me. If we got places out there, because see, in the city of Griffin, just like what you're talking about, we want to raise the bar. We're trying to raise we're going to do, this board is committed to doing exactly what you're saying. Mr. Kirk has talked about it. The city staff has talked about it, that if we have people that are out here that are violating these laws, or these ordinances, we as a board, and we had this discussion back at our retreat, or work session as our city manager likes to call it, and we have decided that we are no longer going to allow this type of stuff to happen in the city of Griffin. So if you bring something back to us, you definitely got my support that we're going to do whatever is necessary. As Mr. William Wilson says, we're going to raise the bar in our city and in our county. And it starts with programs like this and doing the right thing. So if there's anybody that does not want to do that, then the time to speak would be now. If anybody doesn't think that this is a great idea about raising the bar on landlords, on people who are having people to live in those conditions, the time to speak would be now. So I agree with you 100%. So when you say you're putting the pressure on us, you're not putting it on me at all, because I feel the same way you do. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is what the city will receive: a completed complaint form and resolution, plus a copy of the physical inspection if it goes that far. Then the city has in their hands a third-party review, and Toussaint can take action with that. So, as you can see, the flow is the Griffin Housing Authority is acting as agent for the city and the county, which is allowed under statute. We resolve the issue. Now, this isn't always going to skew towards the renters, because one of the other things we're lacking in is some of our landlords just don't know. We have a variety of leases in town from 1 page to 12 pages. So it's a matter of just trying to get with the landlords. This is what you need. These are the problems you're having. We are currently trying to determine just how many Section 8 vouchers are in the city and in the county, so we can determine by census tracts how those are being distributed. I've been told we are about 50% of our utilization of vouchers as compared to 10 years ago. There are less Section 8 renters. Now, we do have Section 8 properties. So I believe that this step that we're taking will kind of say Griffin is serious about this. If we're going to raise the bar, we've got to do it together. Don't leave me hanging out on a branch and chop me off when people start getting upset with us doing this, so please don't do that to me.
Can a landlord file a complaint against a tenant who isn't taking care of the property?
Absolutely.
So there's
We got to communicate that it goes.
Holes in walls and destroyed or not.
Now, I'm going to say something to landlords. Landlords have a responsibility to check their rentals. When you see the conditions that we saw, I can guarantee that landlord never saw the inside of that unit. And you'll agree, you're a landlord. I mean, the fact is that we've got to stop enabling this dependency on these low rent houses. I don't mind they're having a need, and we'll help them with their need, but this is exploitive to the 10th degree. So we've got to stop this. And with your support, I think we can be a good tool in your bag.
Well, you got my support, sir.
Okay?
Do you have enough staff for this endeavor?
Actually, the way it is right now, for the next year, we're going to be doing rehab, so I've got staff to gear this up, and then we're looking for alternative funding sources down the road. But I think this is going to be an asset for Griffin, to be honest.
Thank you.
Okay? Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
What do you need from the city? Do you need an ordinance or an intergovernmental contract or anything to,
No, because we're your housing authority.
well, you're a housing authority, you've got some statutory authority, but
Yeah.
you don't.
Well, I think a memorandum of understanding is, as far as supporting it, is critical. So and we'll do a big presentation on that. But yeah, this.
You want to have one prepared and sent
Yes.
to us to review?
Yeah, I'll put one together. We'll have to do the same thing with the county. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you again for raising the bar.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the next item on my agenda is to discuss filming of Brooklyn and how it will impact downtown Griffin. Karen Bennett will address.
Hey, good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
So we have some good news coming to Griffin. They're already here, getting ready to film next week. So I just have some notes I want to go over with you so that y'all are all in the know in case you get some phone calls from some citizens or business owners. I received a media permit application from Peachy Clean Productions for production of Brooklyn for Monday, April 29th through Wednesday, May 1st. Set staging began yesterday and will continue throughout this week. The areas of high impact, you all should have a notification and some maps. The most impact area is going to be South Hill Street. We'll have a full closure for the 3 days of filming, as well as the State Alley and some of South 6th Street and East Bank Street, as well as Solomon Street over at the old Rushton Hope building. They're doing a scene over there one day. So City Hall will be affected, especially the customer service drive-through teller line. The drive-through teller line will be closed for the 3 days of filming next week. During those 3 days of filming, all foot traffic will enter through the Solomon Street entrance here through the courtroom, and there will be security here. I think an off-duty police officer will be here to kind of direct that foot traffic that's entering the building. We've also gotten I've met with Peachy Clean Productions on several occasions, almost for a year now. We're in close communication with the location manager every day. And then last week, we recently met around the conference table with him and a member with electric, solid waste, fire, planning and development, public works, customer service, Ms. O'Connor, Mr. Smith, Patrick Kay, and Brian Miller. So we were all together to kind of go around the table and discuss the logistics and the impact. So especially the downtown area is going to be affected. It was great meeting with all of them, and I just have to brag on them real quick that they were great to work with. All of them were helpful and cooperative. The detours have been mapped out. Of course, you have a copy of the map. Brian updated our social media outlets on Friday. We discovered maybe one or two people that weren't notified. I've been in contact with a production company to make sure those people were notified. The production company has advised that all the businesses and residents in the area have been notified. Several are being compensated. And of course, you all have copies of the notification. And I just wanted to say that once Peachy Clean Productions wraps up their work here, I plan to reach back out to them and get an update on the economic impact that they had with the city so that we can kind of see the dollars that were spent here.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you all have any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
It's going to be quite an endeavor, so be prepared, especially with the closing of the drive-through. We've done everything we can to get people in and out, but a lot of people are used to the drive-through being open. But at the same time, a filming of this nature has quite an impact on the city of Griffin, as you will see over the next few days. So just be prepared and just send people who call you to us, and we'll do everything we can to keep everybody updated. And I want to thank Ms. Bennett too. She's
Time for one of our billing
Yeah, I was gonna
periods.
say, is that
I'm sorry?
what's the billing cycle look like? Is that a peak day on the
Oh,
collection?
yes, it's first of the month. So it's not going to be fun, but we'll get through it. And I want to thank Ms. Bennett, who's been a tremendous partner between us and the filming, and she does a great job with that.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do the iPads
Like
like
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, we don't have that resource.
We have a lot of cash.
We did consider that, but yeah, a lot of it's cash, and
Nobody's
we
gonna
just
mess with
don't
him
have that
though.
resource.
I didn't say me too.
We expect
Set it up
to-
there underneath the deck out here, just kind of a drive-through.
So we expect everything to resume on the 2nd?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
The drive-through will be back open on the 2nd.
okay. All righty. Next, we'll discuss draft proposal from Spalding County Water and Sewer. Did I skip something?
Art space.
Okay, discuss proposed art space visit and recommendations.
Thank you. We have an excellent opportunity that's going to be right here in front of us. This national organization called Art Space. They are the They're the leading developer in this country on affordable housing for artists, and they have chosen to come out here to Griffin, Georgia. Newton Galloway has been instrumental in this entire process. It was one kind of a avenue that he was looking at for an opportunity to develop the Hastings building. He reached out to Art Space and asked them to come out and consider this property. It's the first time that Art Space has been to Georgia, and the first time Art Space has been to a small community. So they will be coming out on the 7th, 8th, and 9th to review Griffin and see if this is going to be a town that they'd like to invest in. What this group does is they like to take large properties, usually around 50,000 square feet, but they have taken some smaller properties, and they've taken much larger properties and worked with some tax credits and some local financiers to create housing opportunities for artists. So they're planning to come out on the 7th. There's going to be a welcome dinner at the Bell House. Then later on, there's been scheduled the Frizon Ensemble at the Griffin Spalding Auditorium. The next day, myself and Virginia Church will be showing them around to several properties in the community that they may be interested in addition to just the Hastings building as well.
Patrick, how many square feet is the Hastings building?
I'm not exactly sure on that.
13,000.
We'll look it up. They normally do much larger spaces, but they are considering the current location of the Hastings building. That was what Newton actually originally sent out to them as a possibility and gave them interest to come out and check this out. So they'll be looking at that as well as the former Plot Hide and Fur location and several other locations in the community. But this is going to be a really great opportunity. So on Wednesday morning, we'll do a tour of the community in terms of the properties that are out there. That afternoon, I've got a group of local banks and other financiers who may be interested in partnering with the project in terms of the tax credits. And then later on that evening, at 7 o'clock, there'll be a public meeting. I think we're going to try to have that at the Welcome Center where everyone in the community can come out and kind of voice some concerns or thoughts, or they can learn about what's happening there. And then in regards to the commissioners, on Thursday morning at 9:30, we're going to have a government session and inviting both county and city commissioners to learn about this entire process and for them to see that the community and the county are on board with trying to see this through to fruition.
And that's Thursday,
That's Thursday at 9:30. You'll start seeing more information as it comes up. Just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that this group will be coming into town. This is amazing. The Georgia Council of Arts had been trying to get them to come out in the past and wasn't able to, and Newton reached out to them, and they're coming out, and this is a huge opportunity. They don't normally go to small towns, and they've never been to the state of Georgia before. Wow. So this would be a great opportunity for us.
Mr. K, could you also add, if possible, the Old North Side School to your list? I don't think that was mentioned yesterday at the Downtown Council.
Okay. I'll make sure that's added on there. Anything else?
thank you.
Thank you. 10,000 square feet for the Hastings.
Okay, next is to discuss draft proposals from Spalding County Water and Sewerage Facility Authority proposing a 2-year extension to the current water sales agreement.
As we've been talking about for the last several weeks or months, and we know the current wholesale water agreement with Spalding County and the Spalding County Water and Sewer Facilities Authority comes to an end December 31st, 2020, and we've been talking about different options as related to the renewal of that contract. At the last meeting on March the 26th, updated you on some discussions at the March meeting, I think it was the March meeting of the Water and Sewer Authority, where it was explained to them that discussions had taken place regarding the possibility of a joint city and county water and sewer authority. In light of those discussions, at the last Water and Sewer Authority meeting on April the 17th, which Dr. Keller and I both attended, it was presented, and after much discussion by the Water Authority Board, there was a proposal to forward to us an amendment to the current water sales agreement, which would extend the current agreement 2 years, an additional 24 months after the expiration of that contract, December 31st, 2020. So this would extend the term of that agreement to December the 31st, 2022. So I wanted to bring that to you for discussion this morning, for maybe putting on a future agenda to approve or not approve that proposal. The Water Authority did request an answer by June the 1st, so they could meet again in June and kind of know which direction the city preferred to go in relation to the contract. Speaking personally at that meeting, and certainly not speaking on behalf of you, because I know there are several different opinions on which direction we should go by you, and I told him personally that we had some differing opinions on the board. Really didn't know which direction this might go. I know that we have some capital expenses that we need to plan for the very near future. We've talked about the Harry Simmons treatment plant needing extensive upgrades. I don't really know if you want to extend this contract to 2022 and not know that you'll have a contract in hand when we get ready to borrow the money to upgrade the Harry Simmons plant. On the other hand, if we're going to seriously consider a joint authority, we're certainly not going to be able to make that happen by December 31st of 2020. That will be an extensive process, as we have talked about, that could take quite quite a bit of time. I think we'd be pushing it to actually have that done by December 31st, 2022. But there are just a lot of unanswered questions out there, so I bring it to you this morning, as I told the Water Authority that I would, to open it up for discussion and maybe bring it back to a formal agenda next month. So I'll entertain questions or comments or...
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
Okay, since this is a contract they're asking us to discuss, is this something that we could have in a closed session amongst us?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Dr. Keller, have you had a chance for Raf Tellis to do his spreadsheets, if we extend this 2 years, how that affects future income rates, and then if by chance we're able to get a long-term contract after that, once Coweta County starts to take or pay of 5 million gallons a day, how that rate affects everybody?
I have another question. Okay, this is a proposal that they're bringing to us about extending the contract. Okay, as a board, and it is something they're asking us to do contractual. I don't understand why, as a board, we don't have the opportunity. I'm not saying to go into closed session now, but they've given us a date. We should have the opportunity to go in as a board to discuss this.
Into a closed session?
A closed session, a meeting or something ourselves as a board.
There's not a provision in the law to close the meeting to discuss a contract.
I'm not asking you to close the meeting. I'm saying that at some point we should have an opportunity as a board to not be put on the spot to discuss and make the decision about this. There's a lot of questions I have to ask, but I'm not really comfortable asking now in discussion.
I mean, we can discuss it. They requested an answer by June the 1st. That doesn't mean we got to give them one by June the 1st, but that was what they were asking. But, I mean, we can talk about it further at whatever time you wish to do that. I mean, this is a pretty simple amendment to the contract. Everything in the contract would remain exactly the same. The rate calculations, everything that's in the current contract would remain the same. The only thing changing would be the termination date of the contract would be put out 24 months. So in response to your request, I mean, I don't know what Raf Tellis can tell us. The rates would stay the same. So
I understand, but in terms of the figure of debt service and how everything overlaps, and just, I mean, Dr. Keller's been able to provide us with his projections. If we lost the contract, if we extend the contract as is.
I think you're looking for more of a projection or an evaluation.
Correct, just to give us an idea that we don't get surprised, I mean, just so that we see the numbers going up to 2022. Like we were looking at when we discussed it last year.
Do we have a date already set up to meet with the county?
We do.
we're having a meeting on April 30th to discuss service delivery strategy, which is a complete another issue from this. And this particular request comes from the Water Authority itself, not necessarily from the county commissioners, although the county commissioners would have to approve the extension as well because they're a party to the contract, but this proposal comes from the authority.
I don't think there's any further discussion. Thank you.
Kenny, is it fair to say that the county supports the extension?
I have no idea. I don't know that they've had an opportunity to meet and discuss it. I'm not sure Mr. Wilson's here, but has the county commission discussed this?
County has not, but Commissioner Flowers Taylor is on the Water Authority and would be a proponent to the board for doing that. And they historically have relied on members of boards for recommendations.
I have a
question.
Yes,
In
ma'am.
terms of us accepting the extension, are we able to put terms in it that limits how many times we would be willing to extend it? Or is this to keep it from being an indefinite process, so where we don't get stuck in a loop of, okay, well, give us 2 more years, give us 2 more years? Or is that not something that we can attach to?
It's not in this particular proposal, but you can come back with an alternative proposal that says anything you want it to say.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, if we could table this to our next workshop next month, or our work session, the 4th Tuesday, that gives us time to do our research and dot our I's, cross our T's, and get with Dr. Keller individually or
I'm comfortable with that.
And just keep in mind, the next workshop is devoted to the budget, so it will be a lengthy workshop, and adding this on will
Well, then, if
be lengthy as well.
the date, then we'll
yes.
try to do what we need to do. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir.
Okay, discuss preparation for April 30th intergovernmental meetings with Spalding County to discuss service delivery strategy.
Okay. We've also, as you know, last month or so, that's okay, the last month or so, last couple of meetings, I don't remember the exact date, we amended the service delivery strategy at the county's request, as they had applied for a CDBG grant, and we amended the service delivery strategy to amend and clarify some territorial issues to assist them in getting a CDBG grant. At that time, we requested a meeting with Spalding County on or before April the 30th. So it looks like we'll be meeting on April the 30th at 6 p.m. here in this room to further discuss the service delivery strategy based on your request and staff's recommendation. As you know, the last couple of times that the service delivery strategy revisions have come up, we've had very limited discussion based on time frames. We got down to the 11th hour, and to maintain our qualified local government status, we reached last-minute agreements on the service delivery strategies, both in 2012 and I think 2017 was the last one. The one in 2012 was subsequent to the 2010 census. So the next time that the service delivery strategy is required to be negotiated is 2022, after the 2020 census. In 2017, it coincided with the update to the county's comprehensive plan, which is another one of the trigger mechanisms that requires updates to the service delivery strategy. And at that time, it was an 11th hour agreement to leave the service delivery strategy and the division of lost proceeds exactly the same and move forward. We have in the past been a proponent of looking at service delivery in a couple of areas that we felt like perpetuated some double taxation on the part of citizens of the city of Griffin. Several of those items we have discussed over the last few years, however, have not really reached a conclusion. In my mind, those that are most pressing are some negotiation with Parks and Recreation, since the county is the entity which does parks and recreation county-wide and is extremely good at it. And as you know, the city has City Park, which about half of that park is actually leased to the county anyway. The pool is certainly an issue that we've talked about quite some time, and now that the county is realizing and going into the pool business, to have the city pool as on the taxpayers of the city we felt like was something that needed to be discussed. And there were several other issues. 800 megahertz was a contentious issue over the last few years, and we felt like that there should be some discussion with the service delivery strategy as it pertains to 800 megahertz. And then going back and looking at information specific to 800 megahertz, I realized that the current contract for 800 megahertz between the city and the county, it's an intergovernmental agreement, actually expired in 2017. And it expired based on the fact that at that point we decided that it would be renegotiated with the service delivery strategy in 2017. We did receive an invoice from the county for the last payment for last fiscal year and inadvertently made that total 100% payment when in fact it should have been prorated based on the expiration of that contract. So with your permission, I'm going to send a letter to the county and request a refund of $58,240 for the 4 months that we did pay and the 8 months that we should not have paid that based on their invoice. And I don't have plans to make that payment to the county this year because of the expiration of that contract. And if it's okay with y'all, I'm going to ask them for a refund for the overpayment there. And there are some other issues that over the years we have discussed that we feel like is double taxation, their planning and zoning, their building inspections, their code enforcement, all of those things. Of course, the city provides to city residents, so paying the county for those services, which are 100% general fund and 100% pertaining to the county when we do our own zoning, our own planning, our own code enforcement, our own building inspections, in my mind would be double taxation. So
animal control.
We do have an agreement with the Animal Control Center. So we do have an agreement there. However, for animal control officers, we do provide that service to a higher level in the city than the county does. So there are a few things like that that I think we should bring up with the county. If you recall, back in preparation for the 2012 service delivery strategy negotiations, we actually hired a consultant, as did the county, who prepared volumes and volumes of information. And in fact, I have a banker's box up in the vault that has all of this information. I mean, it's a whole box full of service delivery strategy information. At the time, our consultant said that the city should be receiving about 80% of lost revenue, in the county 20% based on the 8 pillars that are outlined in the service delivery strategy law. Contrary to that, the county also hired a consultant who told them about the same thing, that they were entitled to about 80% of it. So we kind of at that time threw the consultants out the window because they'll say whatever you pay them to say, I guess. And we kind of made our own determination over the things that we felt like had the potential to be double taxation. So just in preparation for our meeting on the 30th, I wanted to provide that information and see if there was anything in specific that you wanted me to prepare for that meeting, anything specifically that you felt like that needed to be discussed, or what your recommendation is for an agenda for that meeting, or how you wish that discussion to proceed.
Is there also an issue with solid waste where they've got the collection centers paid out of general fund?
That certainly could be an issue, and I think that was one thing that was on the list.
Can you give us a copy of the list of the items that you just, I'm more visual than auditory. I'm not going to be able to remember.
Yes, ma'am, I can do that, and I think I attached to the agenda item several emails that have been going back and forth over the years in which most of these things are outlined in emails, but I can give you a more specific list.
Even like just a bullet point, just so that I'll, in general, know.
And if anybody wants to review a copy of our consultant's work back in 2012, I certainly have that available. I have both our analysis and the county's analysis if anybody wants to review that prior to the April 30th meeting. Any other direction?
At this point, I'm okay with all the things that you said.
What time's the meeting?
6 o'clock.
Where is it? Is it Griffin Auditorium? It's going to be here.
Gonna be here, yes, sir. That's our plan.
Thank you.
There was something else.
We added final side.
Okay, let me get my other paperwork.
I told you'll be out here by 10:30.
Okay, speaking of... Speaking of raising the bar, May the 8th, 2018, and let me preface all this by saying that there is a particular constituent that I think has contacted most of you in regards to rehabbing a structure. Our planning and development team was approached to get permits to rehab this structure. They wanted to put vinyl siding on this structure, and our development team let them know that vinyl siding was not acceptable. So they have been contacting some, if not all of you, to discuss this. So I just kind of wanted to bring you up to date on the history of this. On May the 8th of 2018, you approved update to our Unified Development Code. We had both a public hearing prior to that in which there were no public comments, and then that was approved by a vote of 5-0. And I think for some reason that Chairman Ward and Commissioner Flowers may have been absent at that meeting. That was May the 8th, 2018.
So, Mr. Smith,
Sir?
what you just say then? You said we approved that?
Yes.
Then what else is it?
Well, I just wanted to clarify because there could have been some confusion because the code was updated for infill regulations, so I'm afraid somebody got confused over infill regulations.
Who got confused?
I'm saying someone could have got confused.
Oh, okay.
We're not confused.
Oh, okay.
However, I do think that we could go back and clarify the UDC, but anytime we write updates to these codes, anybody can go in there and interpret them different. I mean, it's like a contract or anything you put in writing, somebody can go back and say, well, I interpret it this way, which is, it happens all the time. So I just wanted to clarify that in infill regulations, which was what was adopted in 2018, it says, this section is established to preserve the integrity of established neighborhoods, maintain property values, promote public welfare, and protect the tax base. It goes on to say, infill regulations, the word neighborhood is defined as these developed single-family residential properties. Then it goes on to say, except as may be otherwise specified herein, the provisions of this section shall apply to all new residential construction, exterior renovation, additions, and buildings moved to a lot. And then it goes on to say that it applies to adherence to existing architectural style and siding materials. And then in section G it says building materials, siding materials shall be natural wood or an approved masonry product as long as such product does not destroy the design standards of the neighborhood. Cementitious siding such as hardy plank may be used to replace wood or asbestos panel siding, prefabricated metal building, synthetic stucco, exterior insulation and finish systems, vinyl siding, and other materials found to be other than durable products are specifically prohibited.
So to answer Mr. McCord's question about being confused, earlier this year, another property owner had addressed this issue, and I had asked Mr. Kirk for interpretation, and I got a different response than I did when this current situation came up. And so I was looking for clarification, what I got in January, February versus what I got in the month of April. So I just want to make sure we're crystal clear. Was that our intent? In May, when I was thinking infill development, I was thinking of new construction. I've got vinyl siding on my house. I know others have vinyl siding on their properties. So is that, in terms of the extent, did we go too far? Just trying to figure out what we...
And in some cases, if you need to replace vinyl siding, if you replace it and it's already got vinyl siding is one thing. If you need to repair vinyl siding a certain percentage, that's something else. This particular house in question is a wood frame house, and they're asking to completely renovate it with vinyl siding on all four sides.
So are they taking the wood off the house or just?
I think the siding would go over the wood.
They're putting new windows, new roof. They're redoing the whole house. It was been condemned for, or had been vacant for 8+ years. So I was just asking, when they addressed the issue to me, I was recalling on a response I got in January on a house on North 2nd Street and a house, I think, on 4th Street. So that was a question on the tower. This on the Tower Street house is what's...
And just to further clarify, in February of this year, you approved no vinyl siding on any new construction as well. So
we've basically eliminated vinyl siding.
We did, unless it's a repair.
So currently on an existing structure.
Right.
And then just because, like you said about the clarification, do we have a clear outline of like what percentage, if it's just one piece, or if they got to do the whole back of the house?
I think that's something that we need to clarify, because we haven't clarified that, if it's repair or replacement. And it may be even where if they're replacing vinyl siding that is already on the structure, that would be totally different from just taking a wood siding house and putting vinyl siding on it. So I think those are some of the issues that we need to clarify that, again, are open to interpretation.
Is a homeowner doing it? Is it somebody that's living in the house?
No, sir. It's vacated, and according to Mr. Holberg, been vacant for years, but they're trying to prepare this particular house for rental occupancy, I believe.
An investment into
I think that's the case.
A community in which they don't live.
I believe that's the case, but I'm not 100% sure.
Kenny, do we have any idea how many homes in that area have vinyl siding? Not that I'm pro vinyl siding, but just curious.
I don't know. I would say that there are probably quite a few, either wood siding or vinyl siding. I don't think there are many brick homes or hardy plank or stucco in that neighborhood.
It won't ever be any if we keep allowing that type of stuff. If we start raising the bar, like we said we're going to do, and we start requiring people to do what we voted on and we said we wanted to do to change our communities, to make Griffin a better place for everyone, that we won't have those type of things. But if each time when we get ready to do these things, we find a way, we buckle is a good word, we buckle, and we find a way to allow this kind of stuff. Once the word gets out that in the city of Griffin, the Board of Commissioners of the city of Griffin are serious about trying to make a difference in the community, that we don't plan to buckle. We're not in it for I'm not even going to use those words. I'm just going to say, I think we got something in place. People need to follow what we have voted on. Let the community know that we are making an attempt to give them a better community. Now, I wish the young lady was here, so I can't say what I want to say because she said it to me on the phone, and I'll repeat it when she's here so she can defend what she told me about people that live in the house that she is renovating and people that live where she lives. So it's a difference. Now, it may be with her, but see, it's not with me. And I'll address that. Hopefully she'll come to the meeting and we can open it up for discussion. Because I'm not going to sit up here and we talk about making the place better and then buckle is a good word because somebody's trying to make some money. It's not going to happen. Not with me. Now, I'm one of 7, as you know. So not with me. I'm not going to be a part of that.
When she started this
Hey, Jessica, is this a property?
process,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
she started this renovation process, did she come to the city and inquire about what type of materials are approved or not approved? No.
Not that I know of. They started on the roof. I guess they did some windows. Then they came on to get a permit to do the siding. So that's when we were
They
notified.
didn't get a permit for the roof or the window?
They did for the.
They did for the roof and the windows, and then they came back about inquiring about the siding. And it's my understanding that somebody may be here tonight to address these questions, so I just wanted us to have an opportunity to discuss it before a formal meeting
Keep
tonight.
in mind, too, that in the Unified Development Code, you already have a procedure for interpreting that code. And that procedure basically is that Toussaint, as your building official, makes the official call as to how it's to be interpreted. Unless somebody files an appeal, which is a formal process, to this board to appeal his decision, it doesn't even need to come up for you. There's no reason for you all to hear it. So
That's what I said from
I'd say stick with your process. That's why you have it.
Well, I just wanted you to be made aware before somebody came to the meeting tonight in public comments and y'all all looked at me and I'm like, so I wanted a chance to discuss.
Sit down.
I'm sorry, Ms.
My
Mayor.
question was, Truman kind of hit on it, I was just going to ask, is this one that's already under the radar? Have we given them time constraints? I mean, because I didn't ask them that. I didn't know what.
I don't think it's on the substandard list or.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was a property maintenance issue.
It is boarded and there's vandalism on it. You know this property, it's right next to First National Bank on West McIntosh, where you're coming down Experiment and Tower Street goes off this way. It is right in that corner. She actually claimed the other day that it was commercial. It's not. If it were commercial, this would not be an issue at all because there is no vinyl siding on commercial. But she is in between commercial lots. So, but it's a residential lot. She has not been, the CO has not been revoked. She has not been in court for anything. But she had received a property maintenance because it's boarded and vandalized.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this issue?
Thank you for your clarification. Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Jake.
I thought this was going to take all day.